We've got the magic red button. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Data Center News Show. And I have folks in the house. We're going to be talking through data center-y things. And hopefully we had a couple other folks that are be joining us here shortly. But I'm pleased to have the people that I have now. So it's awesome. All right. So I'm your host. I'm Amy Palvido. I am the founder and CEO of Facilimax. I'm also the chairwoman of the U.S. PropTech Council. And every week I have this lovely show and we talk, I don't know, we're going to geek out on power and cooling, surprise, shocker, and probably GPUs in a little bit later in the show. But my guests here today, I will let them introduce themselves. So Dave, why don't you get started?
Sure. Dave Sterlace. I'm with Vertiv. I'm a global account director for one of our major hyperscale customers. And we specialize in power and cooling, like everybody else. Thanks for having me. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, welcome. Oh, and Sean showed up. Look at that. There he is. Hi, Sean.
Hey, I do have a day job.
No, you don't.
Sometimes
you hang out and wait for this show. That's what I'm saying. That's all you do.
Sometimes.
Just kidding. Introduce yourself, sir.
Sean Farney, VP of Data Center Strategy at JLL, where I help our clients who are hyperscalers and co-location folks and enterprise data center operators and owners, help them decipher where the industry is going and how to design and run their data centers to optimize this. And it's been, in the last couple of years, there's been a little bit of change in the industry. So it's been an exciting time solutioning as we change cooling and power density and servers and everything else within and outside of the data center.
What aren't we changing in the data center industry? Isn't it like everything?
Right.
Isn't it like pretty much everything? Well, I guess there are big old computers. I guess that hasn't changed. All right, very cool. And we're going to talk about that today. And Joshua, welcome, sir.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for the invite. I'm Joshua Feinberg from DCSMI, the Data Center Sales and Marketing Institute, and I host the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast. And I am obsessed about helping sales, marketing, product, general partnership professionals grow their personal brand, their team's brand, their company's brand to take a strong thought leadership role throughout data centers, critical facilities, and digital infrastructure. Thanks again for the invite, Amy. Really appreciate it. Sure.
Always good. And if y'all haven't been on Joshua's podcast, you should be on it because it's pretty groovy. He doesn't bite. It's pretty awesome. It's a good podcast. I'm just saying out loud. All right, let's get started. So I will say one of the articles that that I curated for today's show. I don't know if y'all saw. Was it yesterday or this? Yeah, Jensen Huang was on CNBC Squawk Box, and he had come in and doing it. And they talked about the article. They just knew that we were going to talk about this today, about the Bloomberg thing, saying that all the electric bills have gone up 267% because blaming the data center industry. And I thought it was really funny because Jensen was like, nah, that's not true. So I thought that was pretty funny. So have all the electric bills gone up 267% in, say, Loudoun County? Like, are we seeing any of this craziness? Have you all seen it? I'm throwing it out there. Who wants to hop on that one?
No, categorically not. And I'll just say for the sake of the audience, and I say it time and time again, air conditioning in the U.S. consumes twice as much electricity as the entire data center footprint. So we need to. There's a lot of hyperbole going on right now. So if we want to have immediate action on either cost of electricity or build out or consumption, the green side of or the carbon impact side of grid power consumption, one of the first places we need to look is our use of air conditioning in residential and commercial properties. Sure, data centers consume a lot of power, but this doesn't mean that there's a direct pass through related to infrastructure build out. That's inaccurate. There may be some markets where where data center growth is occurring that have seen increases in power costs, which may or may not be related to what's going on in the data center space. It's a complex equation, lots of different inputs. Guys, what do you think?
Yeah.
I have a couple different thoughts on this. One that's Northern Virginia centric, the other one that's more UK centric. So earlier this year, it was either late last year, earlier this year, one of the folks that I had on my podcast who specializes in decarbonization said that I should speak to two ladies that run an activist-related organization in Northern Virginia. I spoke to one of them. They're actually super nice people when you get to know them one-on-one. And I said, I don't understand. You guys are so smart. You have so many things you want to say. Why aren't you doing this? Why don't you have your own podcast? Why don't you have your own YouTube channel? Why aren't you using this as opposed to, because they were trying to get on my radar screen like everyone else was trying to get on the radar screen. And they were seeing me as potentially a more hospitable media outlet than going to one of the other 5 or 10 data center related outlets. And I said, well, we can have you on a panel at some point. I just want to make sure that it's a little bit more balanced. So that was my perspective. And then a couple months after that, there was a piece in the BBC that was basically doing a hit piece on water consumption in the UK. And all my friends that are engineering consultants and marketing and sales professionals in the UK said, this is the reason why we need to do a better job of selling our own narrative and telling our own stories and being in control of that. I'm like, absolutely. And this is the reason why I can't believe that there aren't more people who do this, who have live shows, live streams, webinars, podcasts, blogs to advance their side of the narrative. And a big part of the problem is so many of the data center operators, and I think this is even more US centric than outside the US, like literally muzzle and censor their own employees from doing this kind of stuff if it doesn't align perfectly with the approved narrative, the approved slides that's coming down from the CMO or the PR agency that's overseeing all of this. So there are behind the 8 ball with all of this. But yeah, I think a lot of it is being able, and then there's another interesting data point too. I had Blair Felter on, who leads marketing for CyrusOne, probably early on in the life of the podcast. And one of the interesting things that stood out was Blair was building out a team that was focusing on community stakeholders as another set of buyer personas. Like for a data center operator, they'll market to like hyperscalers and IT professionals and managed service providers, a whole other category. And I see this getting a little bit more traction in certain parts of the data center ecosystem as they're hiring people with skill sets like, the kind of stuff that I do, the kind of stuff that you do, Amy, to literally say, okay, how do we educate and build trust with elected officials, with regulators, with utility companies, with activists? Because if we're the ones that are, historically, the way they've tried to move the needle is to community fairs, sponsoring Little League, sponsoring tournaments and things like that. And it works to a certain degree with building a brand. But at the end of the day, if they're really trying to get everyone to understand their talking points better, as opposed to them seeing it as very carefully scripted and all their marketing and sales allergies popping up, it's the same kind of idea of educating and building trust and understanding the personas and being out in front, which kind of forces everyone to be in the media business.
Yeah. So there's 2 points, right? So we'll go back to I'm going to do the one, and then we'll go back to this whole advocacy piece again also. But Dave, all y'all do is power, right? So have you run up all the electricity? Yeah. So y'all, because of Vertiv, the power has not gone up 267%. Let's just say, no, I'm just kidding. So these articles are crazy.
Yeah, it's tough because on the cooling side, especially now with the advent of a lot of liquid cooling, because of the high power consumption of GPUs, which are basically a different form of computer that we're using now, they give off more heat. Back to your initial comment, the computers haven't changed. Well, actually, they kind of have. But with that in mind, there hasn't been an increase in power usage. In fact, we're more efficient with power, and part of that comes down to, it's like a 67 Volkswagen was air cooled, and a Ferrari is liquid cooled, and the liquid, like in high performance data centers, is self-contained. We're not using all the water in New Jersey to waste it on data centers or whatever. And so that's more efficient. The data centers themselves are more efficient. We got to keep in mind, take a breath, right? The industry has grown a lot. It's still less than 4% that's kind of the highest one I've seen of the usage. Back to Sean's point, which is less than 1/10 of commercial building usage in the country. So even if the industry doubles, is it really going to make your electricity go up 4 times? No, but there's certainly, and I've talked about this before, and I think we could all agree, there's a problem getting the amps and volts from where they're generated to where they're being used. There's concerns about how we're generating them, things like that. And
Yep.
you know, if you're in near my area, if you're out near 3 Mile Island, you know, we can just crank that up eventually and have some power there. And to what Joshua was saying, we need a much better approach to the public to help people understand what we're using and how we're doing it. So
ironically, I think Vertiv's doing a fantastic job with that, as is Schneider. I've had both equivalent like chief evangelists on my podcast. I had Greg Ratcliffe on earlier this year. I had Steve Carlini on very shortly ago from Schneider, and both they do a phenomenal job with field events that educate and build trust and training and certifications in this space. There's a lot of other companies in this ecosystem who could learn a ton from figuring out how to run a playbook like that, even if their resources are a tiny fraction of what Vertiv can invest at that level.
Yeah. So, so is there a point based off of where the data center industry is now? Is power ever too expensive? Like even if it was 260, so what even if the power had gone up 300%? Can the data center industry just keep absorbing those power costs, or is there a line? Has anybody seen the line yet? That's kind of my question.
Amy, I'd consider you like a serial entrepreneur. You know, they always say with entrepreneurship that you're always looking to move from lower yield to higher yield stuff. I was talking about this someone yesterday who was building an energy marketplace, which is another interesting conversation directly related to what we're doing, is that I've seen over the last year or two, all of the people that were chasing Bitcoin related data center development in the last couple of years have all stopped that narrative, and they're all chasing AI data center development.
Well, they might go back to Bitcoin. Have you seen the price?
More capital.
Like, yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But Sean, is power ever too expensive for somebody locating a data center site, and they go, no, I don't want to stick it there?
Simple answer, yes. The more nuanced answer is it's a basket of input variables. But if you look at where over the last 5 years where we've seen the most builds, it's in markets that have attractively priced power and happen to also have a data center business friendly environment. In that bucket of variables includes tax, business climate, labor pool, regulatory capture, so on and so forth. I mean, look at. I don't think it's by accident that 2 of the highest cost power states in the U.S., California, New Jersey, have had significantly scaled back data center development you could look at 5 or even 10 years, as compared to places like Texas, Georgia, and others. Apples to apples, one of our clients would certainly pick a lower cost power environment, particularly given the growing sizes of these campuses. I mean, it's a big number every month when that power bill comes, and that will. And the magic of having deregulated power markets like Illinois, for example, you can ship power in from many different places. So Illinois is not so attractive from a tax perspective and regulatory perspective in some ways, although they're very kind with incentives and tax breaks and things like that. But the ability to bring power in and leverage transmission and buy power in contracts from different places is very attractive to builders. Plus, Illinois has all these other great factors for data centers. So it's a very the heat mapping process. 15 years ago when I was at Microsoft, it was 24 different variables. Now there's even more. So there's lots of different inputs into these calculations. But power, because it's one of the largest OpEx items, and now is used when mapping out capital spend programs and justifying investment in a certain area. If you can sign a long-term PPA with attractive power, it locks in your OpEx costs over time versus an environment that has expensive power that's either being more highly regulated or going up in price. The providers have other options, and there's competition. I would say in some way there's competition across states for where to host new data center builds, in those that are winning and have been winning for the past few years have lower cost power.
Interesting.
I'm fascinated about is states that had such a huge competitive advantage in the telecommunications space that couldn't figure it out on the power side. I grew up in New Jersey. I lived there for the first 25 years of my life. And I went to Rutgers right next to Piscataway. I did contract work at Lucent at Basking Ridge. I did college jobs up in Secaucus. These are all areas where there's been data center build outs, and Homedale, another area where New Jersey should have been so far ahead in telecommunications that as the world flipped over to the Bells and AT&Ts, that they should have been right up there with Northern Virginia. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And it sounds like power has been the big culprit.
Yeah, if you trace, it's an interesting history. If you look at the how and where data centers started, they just piggyback onto the NAPs and the MEAs, which were all telecom facilities, right? In all the major NFL markets and cities, and that's where all these storied data centers are. I always use 350 Cermak in Chicago as an example. Old our Donnelly printing press facility, great adaptive reuse program, became a telecom house, and then a data center grew up around it. Same thing all across New Jersey, New York, California, and markets that got great foot in the door, but like you said, Joshua, failed to capitalize on it. And that'd be an interesting discussion point, looking at what decisions were made over a 10 or 15 year period, which turned it into a data center market in those markets that failed.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity to say. I think about too, like I was an econ major in college, so I remember sitting through with some senior professors who were like on governors' councils for things like public policy about environmental economics and healthcare economics, and why this didn't. I remember speaking at a Y2K symposia at Monmouth, the same Monmouth where they filmed Danny. And I ran into a professor with probably in the later stages. He just sadly passed away about a year or two ago. And I said, "Do you remember?" He's like, "No, I've had tens of thousands of students. I wouldn't remember." But I remember some of these classes, and I remember them talking about like normalizing the speed limits on the turnpike and on the parkway to try to prevent accidents. I remember pollution. I remember hospital occupancy beds. But for whatever reason, Rutgers never got out in front of this to be able to lead the narrative with the governor. Maybe NGIT could have picked it up. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about, mergers. Let's talk about mergers. Is it good for the industry or bad for the industry? So like BlackRock finally got into the game. Well, they've been in the game a little bit, but they just bought Aligned. Good on them. Good on Aligned. I'm always celebrating an entrepreneur who makes loads of cash. It's great. Love that. So are we going to see more of this? Like, is it good for the industry when there's a lot of mergers? Is it bad? I'm just throwing that one. Dave, you get to go. Get to opine.
Okay. I'll say it's just a sign of the time, let's say. I think that right now we're certainly in a capital-rich environment, so I think consolidation is going to happen. People look at Aligned certainly is a great. I've worked with them. I have folks there that I have worked with for many, many years, and they certainly have some very, very interesting ideas, and they do some things rather uniquely, which is great. So yeah, if I had the dough, I'd certainly consider them and be an arrow in the quiver for sure. The question is, what are folks like BlackRock going to do with all this? Are we in the? Are we too big to fail? Is there a bubble? I don't know. I lived in San Jose in 2000 and 2001, and I remember reading an article in the Mercury News that said that this is the best place in the world, and if you hung around outside the airport, you'd see people coming into San Jose to buy used Ferraris, gently used Ferraris, when Internet 1.0 did this. So it's the best place in the world to get used Ferraris. I think that we have a lot more business sense behind it right now. But I also think, and I think Sean and Joshua would agree, that we're in a, I believe the race right now is to be first. First mover is going to gain all the advantages. So a lot of folks are really putting a lot of effort into that and seeing what that means. So we'll see.
We'll see.
I think Aligned was in many ways ahead on sustainability. I'm sure there was other people talking about it louder, but I remember seeing their CEO give a talk at a DCD event in Dallas. I think it was the fall of 2016. So almost 10 years ago. And most of the theme of his talk was low cost power. And I think they were just in the process of building out Phoenix, adding maybe their second or third facility. So they were early out in front with that, of creating a narrative around the industry of wanting to be leader in low cost power in that market. There's another liquidity event that happened. It seemed almost at the same time. Flexential had a big infusion and a change of leadership also. Yeah. Similar, maybe a little bit bigger, but in that same general category of what I'd consider like mid-size, somewhere between the small operator with a couple locations that's independently owned and the giant publicly traded REITs.
Yeah. Are you going to go buy some data center company, Sean? Y'all going to go buy a bunch, and just take over the world?
I'm long on the entire digital infrastructure value chain from an investment perspective. But if you look back, it's interesting. If you look back over the last 15 years, there's been a lot of money made, and now that the street is so fragile and tied to the digital infrastructure space, there's the up and down is ridiculous. Who popped 30% the other day on a deal announcement? There's so many I can't even remember. Was it applied?
AMD and OpenAI had a deal that should give Jensen a little bit of
that was
run for the money.
30% pop, which is great to be an owner of AMD. Applied Digital, similar recently. There's a long list of incredible performance across the space, and it's good to be aware of the different companies. There's also little tiny companies, piece part companies, makers of fiber and copper and GBICs and NICs and all these different parts of the value chain. For me, a pivotal moment was in 2023 when Brookfield bought Compass Data Centers, because on the back end of that deal was pension money. And for me, it was the big, very public announcement to the world that data center investments for mature assets and portfolios are now considered safe to the extent where pensions can invest in them. I think that was a really big deal. I see Aligned as the same thing. Large portfolio-wide collection of assets, stabilized, cranking out cash, and therefore safe for broad and deep pools of capital. And there's just more and more. There's still a lot of dry powder. Data centers have become safe, and hence all the investment on top of all the investment into startups and new tech and things like quantum computing, which aren't even commercial yet.
No.
But have already seen their share of meme stocks in the space. So it's fascinating to see the infusion over the last 20 years. And Dave may have even posted one of his super cool infographics sometime in the last couple of years about the morphing of the S&P 500 over the last few years to show the predominant role now that tech plays in collections of equities. Even looking at the top 10, all the performance in the last 3 years is 6 or 7 stocks. So it's fascinating. As a guy who's been crawling around data centers for 30 years in relative obscurity, now that it's fascinating to see now that data centers are like headline news and are of great interest to investment folks on a daily basis. It's just the industry has certainly arrived, and we were just all lucky to have picked the right place to work.
To hang out. Yeah, we did. It's like crazy town. We're all rock stars now. Did you not know, Dave? You're a rock star, Dave. Did you not know?
I did not know.
You didn't know.
Retired teachers have a lot of power as institutional investors. I think Compass actually had an infusion from a teacher pension fund. I'd probably say at least 5 years ago. Chris at Compass has been doing just a phenomenal job with building up the brand and everything as a thought leader in the space for well over 10 years. But yeah, they're in a position now where they can really influence a lot of policy. I don't think it was the company that was in the Coldplay controversy, but around the same time, there was something recently where the director of a teacher's pension fund was doing strong shareholder advocacy to get more transparency around something. I don't think it was the company that was involved in that, but it was something else similar to that.
So they were caught on camera kissing their director of HR, or what are you talking about, Willis?
No, there was a scandal recently with some kind of transparency issue where the transparency was being forced because of the power of an institutional investor. That was just a massive collection of affluent retired teachers pension fund assets, which is something relatively. This is a relatively new phenomenon. If you go back to like 25, 30 years ago, there was the concept of the starving teacher. But the idea that most have these phenomenally well-funded retirement plans that now have as much power as like a Bank of America analyst getting on an investor call and really holding the feet to the fire for a CFO or board is insane to think about. It's kind of like imagine you're a group of your high school English teachers waving their finger, like scolding you for doing something wrong. But yeah, that's kind of the mindset of the halo that a lot of this is projecting in the controlling of the capital. So it's super interesting to see how that's intersecting the digital infrastructure world. And of course, everyone now has heard of all these data center brands because of their mainstream coverage in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I know. We're the cool kids now. It's awesome. I like to call myself the cool kid, even though I'm new to the industry. So but I'll call myself the cool kid anyway. It's all good. All right, let's switch to cooling because it's one of the things you have to talk about. And I love these stories of this wacko, like crazy things to me. Like it doesn't make any sense. But so in China, they're doing and I've heard of this before where you're trying to stick data centers in the ocean and they're underwater. Like this is like true immersion. They're like in the ocean. How do you switch out a server? Like, how do you maintain a data center when it's in the ocean? Did like techs have to get scuba certified? Like, I don't understand how you do this. Is this how you do it, Dave? Like, what do? You got to get scuba gear on?
Yeah, you would have to. You remember Microsoft did this as a demonstration a few years ago as well, and they ultimately shelved it because it ain't too practical ultimately. So we all understand the free cooling. I think Facebook on a project I worked with on a former company used lake water or fjord water or something up in the Nordics to cool. And that makes sense.
Hey, Dave, I think that failed because it's very expensive. It turned out being unfjordable.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay. Horrible. Terrible.
So
why do people keep pursuing this stuff? Like it's like it doesn't make any sense, but it makes headlines. So you're gonna stick it in
exactly.
Yeah. I don't know.
But again, I think the significant move towards more efficient cooling, whether it's going from forced air to rear door heat exchangers or whatever, even liquid air for the middle step makes a lot of sense, makes things a lot more efficient. And I think that's really what we're going to learn from this. And if free cooling happens to be at the bottom of a lake somewhere, well, okay. Or open a window in the fjords, get the outdoor air in. Okay. I think there's certainly a lot that we can do to make things more efficient, and that's been worth pursuing, let's say.
Yeah. What is Vertiv pursuing? Are you doing ocean scuba masks for data? No, I'm just kidding. Like, what are you all working on?
Well, that's in the suggestion box. However, we don't use all the suggestions. No, we're the interesting thing is as we're seeing more and more folks go to liquid cooling, we're trying to figure out, what our development should be, where the industry is heading, because we're trying to.
Uh-oh.
We lost Dave. We lost Dave.
His cooling got really
At least
cool.
he's when he's frozen, it's not like a bad frozen, because that would be me. I would be frozen
Awkward.
like this.
Am I back?
They're back.
You're back.
He's back.
Oh, okay.
Back. All right.
So
Great.
So what's been interesting to me in my couple months here with Vertiv is that the chunks we're talking about in cooling are, first we thought, maybe 1 megawatt would be the chunk. Now we're looking at blocks of 2.5 or 5 megawatts, and how we can scale those for our customers, and that's pretty wild. So we have prefab containment and CDUs and things at just this phenomenal scale. That I really, the progress has been so quick, so fast, that it really boggles the mind.
Interesting. So explain that to somebody like me who knows nothing what you just said. So basically you can do, before when you were doing cooling, it was at much lower capacities, and now you can do it very bigger.
Yeah, basically. So cooling's such an important part of it that before you'd have a long row of air-cooled computers of racks that were maybe 10 kilowatts a rack. Now we have 3 racks and then 4 or 5 to service them from a cooling perspective. So it's so
wow.
now. It changes the entire footprint of the data center. So we used to have acres of white space and all this gray space around it with the cooling equipment. Now you have a little tiny white space and giant cooling and equipment feeding it. So it's just kind of flipped on its head.
Yeah. So is the overall footprint the same? You just have more cooling equipment and less, less white space or less racks?
I think we'll see it. I think we'll see. It depends on what you want to do, of course. And there's not, an AI node within a large data center is going to be much, much more concentrated versus a standard production node or whatever. So it kind of depends what you want to do within that space. But if we were building purely for AI, or what they're calling an AI factory, and if you follow what we're doing is we're and many others, we're looking at what NVIDIA is saying the generations are going to look like, and we're trying to keep up with that in terms of what the power usage and coolant usage will be. It'll be a lot more focused, a lot more concentrated for the compute side, and a lot more equipment surrounding it. So it'll kind of be ultimately, I think the square footage might be smaller, but the watts and kilowatts and megawatts per we're talking megawatts per rack, right? Are much, much higher.
Yeah, for sure. So what about this other thing with the ice where they're using using ice to do this with this? I don't know. Did you see that?
Well, anytime a material changes phase, there's energy to be had from it. So it makes a lot of sense, and that's been used in more kind of low density applications before. We've used ice storage and pumped hydro and things like that as giant batteries. The question for data centers is if we want to use battery, some kind of long-term backup, right? Mm-hmm. How can you get the energy you need? And you're not going to. Physical batteries are limited by scale, right? You can't, if you're Google or Microsoft or one of the big guys or Compass or whoever, 100 megawatts at 4 hours plus is what they need. You're not going to be able to do that very easily with standard batteries right now. So if you look at things like using excess energy to pump water up into a lake and then drain it out slowly, you could get that to work, and we've seen that to work in Europe for days at a time. So there's ways around, different ways to look at storage, but are we ready to do that yet? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. Depends. I guess where I guess the site. I mean, it would have really like it's
Yeah.
you know,
And I think everybody's hedging their bets because they foresee that we're going to have small modular nuclear reactors available,
mhm.
and we probably will within a decade. But in the
Mhm.
meantime, that's I think what's going to bridge that. Is it going to be natural gas turbines? Is it going to be? I don't think it's going to be batteries at scale. I just think we don't have the correct chemistry for the battery density we need.
Interesting. So what's next on the horizon? This is for everybody. What's next on the horizon as it relates to everybody talked about, well, they were talking about it at YATA about this whole idea around the 1 megawatt rack densities and all these other different things. And we get that obviously drives cooling. So do we get like a 2 megawatt rack? And then it's not 1 for 1, right? As you get to a 1 megawatt rack, the cooling isn't going to be the exact same as if you get to 2. Does it become exponential? Does it cool? I mean, I'm just curious of what that does to the data center design as our racks get denser and denser. Come on, Sean.
I actually think I think we'll see things reverse a little bit. We're almost getting too dense too quickly, which from a mechanical and electrical perspective is becoming challenging. I joke that I can get a megawatt out in my living room now from a size perspective, right? Because of this densification. Mm-hmm. I get, a cabinet of a Supermicro GB300 gear, that's 140 kW, and that just goes in that corner right over there. Everything from copper, fiber, connectivity, cooling, and power out to the PDU. It's getting so dense. We may get too dense, or we may find and this is perfect time perhaps for someone from Supermicro to comment on this. We may get to the point where, from an operations perspective, don't forget about operations. It
yes.
matters. We may slow down our densification because there becomes too much energy per unit of compute from a space perspective and an operational risk perspective. And this is a very advanced thinking. But if you start to pack too much equipment in too small of a space, the impact of an error creates risk, which is intolerable. So we've been getting dense. It's great. It's fun. We've gone from 3 kW enterprise racks 10 years ago, producing lots of revenue, to now this mythical 1 megawatt rack. We may see that back off and become more distributed simply from an operational resiliency perspective. And we're not there yet. This is all still a research project. We're finding this out. But as an operator, and JLL operates a lot of data centers for clients globally across more than 4 gigawatts now. The densification may cause more issues than it solves, and we may see more of a distributed approach going forward. There's lots in that though, and lots to unpack. And I'll pause there, and perhaps we can have some insights from our new guest.
Our new guest. Hey, Yang, how are you, bud?
Hey, Sean. Hey, everybody. Dave and Josh. Nice to meet you guys here.
Nice to meet you as well.
We teed up a question for you right as you were coming on. We were talking about
Oh my gosh.
I know, guys, I know. But so introduce yourself first. But then we were talking about, can a rack get too dense? Is it we'll be able to scale and cool it and all these other things? Is it going to be? Am I going to have a 2 megawatt PC? No, I'm just kidding. But go introduce yourself first before you answer that. Take on that question.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Amy, first of all, thank you for having me on here. So my name is Yang. So I work for Supermicro. I'm in charge of a data center building block solution for Supermicro. Most of the solution that I'm in charge of is really kind of working with our hyperscaler partner, our data center operator and builder to build the data center solution with Supermicro's GPU IT gears to really accelerate it for our AI a data center. So I'm very looking forward have a chat with you guys here. You guys are definitely know a lot more than than me. But I'm happy to share some insights from Supermicro perspective here. Say how we can be working together and how we can really kind of catch up with this booming of AI era.
Mhm. All right.
Yeah.
So is Supermicro going to make it a 2 megawatt? I mean, you're going to make it, how fast are your chips going to go? What are you doing? We announce it. We make announcements on this show, Yang. You just make all the announcements you want. Let's reveal all the tech that y'all are working on.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody look at it, I call the ecosystem here, right? So whenever we talk about, hey, how big the power will go forward, you always want to start with NVIDIA, right? That's all the generation, that's all start from. So essentially, right? So everybody have to look at it, NVIDIA as the next generation for their GPU. Right now, I believe they just announced in September the next version, which is like after Blackwell, the next generation GPU is Varian Rubin VR. So it's going to call NVL 144. Right. I think that you always start from there. Now, today's, definitely you're going to have the much more power as we continue, as NVIDIA push more powerful GPUs. Now, downstream under Supermicro, in our expertise, we really want to build a most powerful GPU racks based on NVIDIA GPU, right? So we integrated with our liquid cooling solution, which is, I believe, Xiang, we talk about it, how we can do, I call, rehost our most latest, greatest of GPU with existing data center, right? With retrofit, what we can do to rehost those AI and the GPU server, as customer need a more capacity. Definitely, you're going to get a more and more powerful GPU down the road. And I believe like Vera Rubin will be production available by end of year 2026.
Very cool.
You can, that's kind of, right now we're shipping most of our GP200 and the GP300. So we are, I'm not sure this is considered as a production marketing thing here, but is, Supermicro is going to ship like a GP300 as a production by end of year. This year.
Wow.
So if you look at it, if everybody knows that, CPU cycle like a TikTok from Intel, right? So now like every year you have a double your capacity, for double your power. It is getting crazy there. So you're gonna. So I think everybody will talk about the power, right? How we're going to really kind of cooling the GPU racks or data center. That's another big topic for everybody.
So you're saying that you're going to double capacity, that everybody's trying to double the capacity every year, like on the GPUs. Is that what you said?
So if you look at the NVIDIA GPU roadmap, that's will be very, very the case.
Interesting. So Sean, if that's the case, are they going to be swapping out? They're not going to be swapping out servers every year. If you're going to double the capacities, I mean, how does the data center do that?
No, it's crazy because if I buy a megawatt of Supermicro gear, that's $30 million. Let's just throw a very generic number out there. So you don't throw it away. Investors are starting to question the ability of server investments in 3 years to still perform work, right? Because with this torrid pace of processor advance, it's forcing, we were forever in a 3 to 5 year cycle for replacement of server hardware, and sometimes you could stretch it farther depending on workload. This just upends that cycle. And my point about ops still is, we've done more densification of power in the last couple of years than we did in the last couple of decades, perhaps. We've stranded tons of space. We have space, and the operational complexity of trying to shove more than a megawatt of gear into a cabinet is such that, from a risk perspective, we may back off on that. It's a 100 kW cabinet is still pretty impressive. Why push it if working in tight spaces and concentrating risk creates issues going forward? It's a new thing. No one's talking about it yet, but I can see this coming as a retired operator. Having so much gear concentrated in a small space just increases your risk, and we have all this stranded space all over the place because of this processor roadmap, which has just gone like this and continues to go like this. I wonder if we'll pause or take a breath, or if the operations folks are going to say but hold on a second. I don't need to load this cabinet all the way to the top. I'm going to load it with, I'm still going to load it with 200 kW. That's okay, but I'm going to spread some of the load out. That's a question that remains open, but that's where my kind of risk aversion thinking cap goes on, and the stuff I start worrying about.
I've heard some similar.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, I've heard some similar ecosystem impacts. Also, a lot of people may be overlooking that as we get to like Rubin and 600 kilowatts per rack, that a lot of work that used to be done by smaller integrators is not going to be, they're just not going to be able to keep up. And when we talk about like trust and safety and reliability, you're going to see companies like the size of Dell and Supermicro and Schneider and Vertiv and everything have to get involved and putting a wrapper around these things that normally smaller companies could have. So there's definitely going to be some service provider opportunities that will be commoditized out. But the ITAD folks, the decommissioning folks that take these 3-year-old servers out and all of a sudden have something that was 30 million that's now worth they're having a moment. They're loving it, because there's always a buyer for someone that wants it downstream. If the big 3 hyperscalers don't want it, the mid-size or smaller co-location companies for sure will take it for pennies on the dollar.
I'll take it. I'm just kidding. I'll take it for pennies.
That's how we're going to get you the Blade server.
Exactly. I know, because my little startup is going to need a server eventually. Can someone just say, hurry up, Young, make the next generation so I can buy your old one? Will work just fine for me. It's all good.
Get Supermicro to sponsor you, and you'll be all set.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
All right. Josh is working.
I will send some demo to you, Amy.
Exactly. For free. I want it for pennies. I like pennies. Pennies are my jam. I love pennies. So Dave, back to this whole thing, is that if the chips are changing so fast, are the OEMs, like the folks like Vertiv, able to keep up with, are y'all spinning out of control? Is it chaotic over there? I'm just kidding. Probably not.
Well, it's control chaos, but it's pretty interesting. And to the point, go back to cooling. We started looking at 3-inch pipes. Now we're talking about 8-inch pipes and things. I mean, it's pretty heavy duty in terms of what we need for our coolant distribution loops, things like that. To Sean's point, that the back of a cabinet now has at least the latest ones are have a 50-volt back plane that's like 800 amps or something, and at least, so a lot of folks don't. We're going to need specialized players in that, whereas before that would just be at the medium voltage end, which was kind of well defined because of the incident energy there. Yeah, I can't. It could be seen that we'll be having to wear beekeeper suits to change a server close enough, just because of so much energy within that one cabinet. So I think that a beekeeper safety PPE suits for the audience. Sorry, and you've all seen them with the heavy duty thing. So next week, interestingly, is the Open Compute Summit, and Vertiv is demonstrating some new products there, as are lots of folks. I think that we'll learn a little more in the next couple of weeks in terms of what the expectations are. But Young had it right. We're all listening to what NVIDIA said, and that's basically our North Star. And some of our large clients have said, look, if you're not on that path, don't bother talking to us, because that's the way we see things going. And there's some speculation.
One more time.
Sorry. Oh, I cut out. Oh, I said, if you're not on the NVIDIA path, on their roadmap, you're probably not going to be a vendor here very long.
Yeah.
So if I could quickly comment here, sorry, Amy, Dave, I think, because I'm in this ecosystem, right? So I engage with a lot of hyperscaler customer directly, right? If you go to those big five guys, right, like a Meta, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, even on just let's say CDU, for example, if you want to sell your CDU solution to Microsoft and Meta, their first question will ask you, are you on the NVIDIA AVL list? If you are not, conversation is over.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very simple. You say, you got to go to NVIDIA AVL list first. Even, by the way, NVIDIA don't buy CDU at all.
Right.
They don't buy CDU.
Yeah.
But they sort of say, okay, with my newest GPU, okay, this is a CDU I think will be work on my next generation. If you are not in that ecosystem, when you go to Microsoft, you won't go to Google. There are people will say, have you been, talk to NVIDIA? Have you been in that AVL list? If it's no, say, could you work with them first? Then come to me. Simple as it is. And as this liquid cooling solution, right, with Coplay, I believe that Vertiv is part of that AVL list, right? Because I know, but a lot of people try to get it there. So I even consider that's not a technical question, it's a marketing question. I just, kind of added that with you because, this is how NVIDIA kind of, for better, for worse, they kind of build that ecosystem so that everybody surrounds in, back to maybe 20 years ago, like Intel, right?
Like Wintel, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? I still remember. Yeah.
It feels like Jensen Huang has more control over the brand of the overall industry than like peak Gates and peak Andy Grove.
Absolutely.
Anywhere from like 95 to like 2005, something like that.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yes.
Certainly a lot more capital.
More capital, yes.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah. All right. So who's going to get Jensen Huang on my data center news show? Who's going to, come on. You're going to get Jensen on the show, man. He'll come. He'll come. Look how cool we are.
I think they're going to have the GTC in Washington, D.C., right? That's the end of this month.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be there. I hope to see, Sean, I hope to see you again. Dave and Josh, if I have a chance to meet you guys in person, love the chat. That will be something, why? Because at DC, right?
Yeah.
That's actually make a huge difference.
Yeah.
I believe that's their first time at DC.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right.
They've been having it out in California. Yeah. For the last couple of years, it's been out in California.
That's right.
Sure. Yep. It'll be an interesting time. All right, y'all. Look at that. Our hour is up. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Well, for those of so we're just going to go around the room. Thank you, all of you, for coming on the show. I always love having everybody on my show every week. So we'll do the round the room. Dave, if somebody would love to get a hold of you because they want to buy all of Vertiv stuff, like everything, how could they do that, sir?
LinkedIn's the easiest way to get a hold of me. So be glad to talk you through that.
Yep. And Joshua, who wants to come on your show, everybody needs to go on Joshua's show. How can they get a hold of you, sir?
Reach out to me by LinkedIn. Always looking for great guests. I've been very fortunate. A lot of people that have been on Amy's show have wanted to come on the podcast. I'm getting great guests. all four of you for sure have open invite anytime. So feel free to reach out. And for anyone else that just wants to keep up with the resources that we create, you can sign up for our newsletter, the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on our website at dcsmi.com.
Awesome sauce. And Yang, they all want to buy your chips, man. All right, how do they get a hold of you, sir?
I mean, yeah, I would love to, talk to people and actually more importantly, talk about the Supermicro, our product, our solution.
Mhm.
And so, you can hold me on the LinkedIn. And I really think there's a lot of things that the Supermicro could support or help your AI journey, particularly our infrastructure hardware. I love to share with you, my insight. Also, most important, learn from you, where we can work together. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And Sean.
If you need help finding a piece of digital dirt, you need money to finance the development, someone to commission the facility, someone to find you customers to fill it, and run that facility, just reach out to me at JLL and we'll get you to the right folks via LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. We'll see you next week,
Amy.
Thursdays at
Thanks,
1:30.
Dave.
You know where to be.
Thanks,
It's
John.
here.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
see you
Bye.
guys.
Bye-bye now.